What if I told you there are cities in the United States where it feels like time simply stopped? Places where homes sit empty, factories are frozen in silence, and downtown streets echo with footsteps no one hears. These are America's zombie cities. Places that were once booming with business, people, and promise, now left behind, decaying in the shadows of their past. In today's video, we're uncovering 10 real-life zombie cities in the USA. Cities like Gary, Indiana, where over 30% of buildings are abandoned, or Flint, Michigan, still haunted by crisis. We'll visit the fiery ruins of Centralia, the emptiness of Cairo, and many more places that seem stuck between life and death. These aren't just broken cities. They're powerful warnings of what happens when economies collapse and people are left behind. But before we dive in, just a small request. We put a lot of work, research, and energy into every single video for you. So if you find this topic important, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It truly helps us keep going. Now let's get started. Number 10. Gary, Indiana. Gary, Indiana, once a symbol of American industrial, has become one of the most distressed cities in the United States. In the 1960s, the city was bustling with over 170,000 residents, supported by the booming steel industry that provided stable jobs and economic prosperity. However, when the steel mills began to shut down in the 1970s and 1980s, due to automation, outsourcing, and foreign competition, Gary's economy collapsed. Tens of thousands lost their jobs, and poverty quickly took hold. Crime surged, schools deteriorated, and families fled in search of better opportunities elsewhere. Today, Gary's population has dwindled to fewer than 70,000 people. More than 30% of its buildings sit abandoned, broken windows, and crumbling factories dominate the landscape. Overgrown lots and empty streets give many neighborhoods an eerie, ghost town feel. Once a proud symbol of America's industrial might, Gary now reflects the deep scars of economic abandonment and structural inequality. Number 9. Camden, New Jersey. Camden was once a thriving industrial hub, home to major companies like RCA Victor and the New York Shipbuilding Corporation. In the mid-20th century, its population peaked at over 120,000. But after decades of deindustrialization, white flight, and political corruption, Camden has transformed into one of America's most troubled cities. Today, the population has dropped to around 71,000, and nearly 36% of residents live in poverty. Abandoned buildings and boarded-up homes dominate entire neighborhoods, and many streets feel eerily empty. Even police stations have shut down due to budget cuts and restructuring. Camden has consistently ranked among the most dangerous cities in the U.S., with a violent crime rate of 1,603 per 100,000 residents, more than 4 times the national average. Despite some recent signs of redevelopment, Camden remains a city in crisis, scarred by economic collapse, overwhelmed by crime, and now it feels like a zombie city still standing but barely alive. Number 8. Detroit, Michigan. Detroit, Michigan, once known as the Motor City and the birthplace of the American auto industry, is now one of the most iconic ghost cities in the United States. In 1950, Detroit was home to nearly 1.85 million people. Today, that number has dropped to around 620,000, a loss of over 1.2 million residents. The collapse of the auto industry, combined with racial tensions, white flight, and poor city management, led to widespread job loss and mass migration. More than 70,000 buildings across the city sit abandoned, including schools, factories, and homes. Entire neighborhoods have been overtaken by nature. Trees grow through rooftops, and wild animals like foxes and pheasants roam freely in vacant lots. While Detroit is making efforts to revitalize its downtown core, the scars of abandonment are visible everywhere. Crumbling infrastructure, empty skyscrapers, and silent streets serve as haunting reminders of the city's fall. Detroit is fighting for a comeback, but its past remains etched in every corner from being America's most famous ghost city. Number 7. East St. Louis, Illinois. East St. Louis, located just across the Mississippi River from St. Louis, Missouri, was once a booming industrial city, but today it ranks among the poorest and most dangerous places in America. In 1950, the city had a population of over 82,000. Today, that number has dropped to around 18,000, a staggering decline of nearly 80%. Once thriving factories and businesses have long shut their doors, leaving the city with an unemployment rate hovering around 12% and a poverty rate of nearly 40%. The collapse of the manufacturing sector, along with years of systemic neglect and corruption, has left the city in ruin. Most local businesses have shut down, leaving entire streets filled with boarded-up storefronts and decaying buildings. Streetlights frequently don't work, plunging neighborhoods into darkness at night. The violent crime rate is among the highest in the nation, with more than 2,400 violent crimes per 100,000 people, over 6 times the national average. With its crumbling infrastructure, abandoned homes, and sense of lawlessness, East St. Louis feels like a forgotten, post-apocalyptic zone in the heart of the Midwest. Number 6. Centralia, Pennsylvania. Centralia is one of the most haunting ghost towns in America, abandoned not by economic collapse, but by fire. In 1962, a coal mine fire accidentally ignited beneath the town and has been burning ever since. The underground blaze stretches across 400 acres and could continue to burn for another 250 years. As toxic gases seeped through the soil and dangerous sinkholes began to appear, the population dropped dramatically. In 1980, Centralia had over 1,000 residents. But today, fewer than 5 residents remain, determined to live out their lives in the place they once called home. The government used eminent domain to buy out and demolish most homes, and the U.S. Postal Service even revoked the town's zip code. Smoke still rises eerily from cracked roads, and warning signs litter the landscape. Route 61, once a main highway, is now abandoned and covered in graffiti. Centralia feels like the set of a horror film, silent, smoldering, and forever scarred by the fire beneath. Number 5. Cairo, Illinois. Located at the confluence of the Mississippi and Ohio rivers, Cairo was once a booming river port and trade hub. In the early 1900s, its population peaked at over 15,000, supported by steamboat commerce, railroads, and manufacturing. But racial tensions, economic decline, and decades of disinvestment led to a dramatic collapse. Today, Cairo's population has plummeted to just under 1,500, a staggering 90% decline. The once bustling downtown is now a ghostly shell. Buildings stand abandoned, windows shattered, and roofs caved in. The streets are quiet, overgrown with weeds, and lined with decaying brick structures that whisper stories of a forgotten past. Public housing projects have been demolished, schools have closed, and businesses have vanished. The sense of abandonment is overwhelming. It's as if time froze, leaving Cairo suspended in a forgotten era. Once full of life and promise, Cairo now feels like a city erased. Its decline stark, haunting, and seemingly irreversible. Number 4. Flint, Michigan. Flint, once a thriving hub for General Motors, has become a symbol of industrial decline and environmental disaster. In the 1960s, Flint's population peaked at over 196,000, but today it has shrunk to around 80,000, a decline of nearly 60%. The infamous water crisis began in 2014, when the city switched its water source to the Flint River without proper treatment, exposing over 100,000 residents to lead-contaminated water. But the crisis only spotlighted deeper issues. Thousands of homes lie abandoned. Some estimates suggest over 20% of residential properties are vacant. Crime remains a serious problem, with violent crime rates more than double the national average. Factories that once powered the economy are now rusting relics. Unemployment, poverty, and distrust in leadership still plague the city. Years after media attention moved on, Flint continues to struggle. a zombie city where the headlines have faded, but the suffering hasn't. Number 3, Youngstown, Ohio. Youngstown was once a vital part of America's steel belt, producing tons of steel that built the nation. In the 1950s, the city boasted a population of over 170,000 and a booming economy centered around the steel industry. But when the mills began closing in the late 1970s, starting with Black Monday in 1977, when over 5,000 steelworkers lost their jobs overnight, Youngstown's collapse was swift and brutal. Today, the population has dropped to just 60,000, a decline of more than 65%. Entire neighborhoods are now eerily empty, with rows of boarded-up houses, shuttered schools, and crumbling churches. Vacant lots and decaying buildings are common sights. Businesses that once lined bustling streets have long vanished, leaving silence and abandonment. The city's poverty rate hovers around 35%, and recovery has been slow. What remains is a haunting shell of the American dream, a place shaped by steel now defined by its absence. Number 2, Stockton, California. Stockton became one of the most prominent examples of urban financial collapse when it filed for bankruptcy in 2012, the largest U.S. city to do so at the time. Once a bustling agricultural and shipping hub in California's Central Valley, Stockton was hit hard by the 2008 housing market crash. Home values plummeted by over 50%, foreclosure rates soared, and city services were slashed. The population of roughly 320,000 struggled with deep cuts to police, fire, and public works. Homelessness surged, with encampments spreading across parks, sidewalks, and underpasses. Crime rates spiked, and entire neighborhoods were abandoned or left in disrepair. Downtown Stockton, once vibrant, saw businesses shutter and streets go quiet. While the city exited bankruptcy in 2015 and has made some progress, many parts still resemble a dystopian wasteland. Boarded-up homes, crumbling infrastructure, and visible poverty reflect Stockton's ongoing battle to rebuild from the ashes of economic disaster. Number 1, Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Pine Bluff, once a prosperous hub for agriculture and industry in southeastern Arkansas, is now one of the fastest shrinking cities in the South. In 1970, the city had a population of over 57,000, but by 2024, it has dropped to just 37,000, a loss of more than 35%. As major industries closed or relocated, thousands of jobs were lost. This economic downturn triggered widespread poverty and a surge in crime. The city's violent crime rate has reached over 1,400 incidents per 100,000 residents, one of the highest in the nation. Entire neighborhoods are marked by boarded-up homes, and downtown is dotted with shuttered shops and abandoned storefronts. Residents continue to move away, seeking safer communities and better opportunities. Despite small-scale revitalization efforts, Pine Bluff still struggles to shake off its decline, a forgotten dot on the map struggling to hold on amid economic and social collapse. And there you have it, 10 zombie cities in the USA, where silence has replaced the sound of progress, and history lingers in every broken window and abandoned street. These places aren't just forgotten, they're warnings. Proof of what happens when industry collapses, leadership fails, and communities are left behind. But even in the darkest corners, there's still a flicker of hope. Some of these cities are fighting to rise again, one building, one job, one voice at a time. If you found this video eye-opening, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the untold stories of America. What city shocked you the most? Drop it in the comments below. We're reading every one. Thanks for watching.